Mm. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Maya.
Hello.
Hmm. So tell us about your experience, Maya, over the last few days since we last spoke.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I might have problems with my microphone or something. I took the old computer now because my new one died. Well, there was an interesting thing on what would be Friday morning for you. It was Thursday evening for me. The session that wasn't recorded and you were at the wedding. There was a new girl, and she's a beginner, so she had a lot of questions. And Marius and other people tried to answer all these questions. So it was a lot of it. And at some point, one guy said to her, there is not a master, there is not a teacher who would tell you, sit and wait, and this will come. In the sense of nothing will happen in the future, it has to be now. And it struck me. And I thought, oh, so no one tells sit and wait because there is nothing in the future. And then translated in my head as it has to be now, it has to be here in this room where I'm sitting. So, okay, and I was sitting somehow confused. And okay, it was late in the evening for me. Somehow at that moment, I was really here and I didn't care for the future, so that I wasn't able to think of what is going to be tomorrow. Somehow it didn't interest me what I'm going to do tomorrow, what I have to do tomorrow. I wasn't able to think about it anymore. And okay, I went to sleep because it was late. And the next morning, it was yesterday morning, everything that I did before, like when I allow things to happen around me, this state was even easier somehow. The things were happening around me. It was easier for the life to unfold around me than normally. And it lasted for a half a day, and then it faded again. I'm not, well, no. The ability to let things, somehow when it occurs to me, okay, now I'll let things just be, I can do it a little bit easier than before. And I care again what I have to do tomorrow, preparing for my work and things.
Oh, yes. Yeah, of course. but it's also it's there. Many things come up for me, but it's interesting that even though you're preparing for your work tomorrow, you're doing it now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that that ease of what that easiness of I don't know how I forget the words you use now, but the easiness of things happening and they were happening now. Do you the word acceptance comes to my mind. Was there some kind of acceptance that allowed them to be in the present, happening now? Yes.
Uh, Not just acceptance, there was nothing resisting.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't resisting anything. Things happened. And there was another thing. Uh, when I was moving my gaze, for example, things came into my field of vision, and I was somehow things are appearing, and this is just stupid for me to say now. I don't know what it means. Things were appearing in the sense that when I saw something new, it was just appearing. Like I saw it when I opened the door and saw another room. The room was appearing in front of me. So I found myself closing and opening the door 3 times just to see how the room appears and disappears again.
Mm, mm, mm.
But it was so subtle. It was so subtle that it's easy to dismiss it. But then I always thought, okay, these are thoughts now. This dismissing, these are thoughts.
Sure. Yep. 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 I would love you to have that experience again
Me
and
too.
and see if that appearing had a sense of connection for you.
Okay,
If there was yes, was it, yeah, just anyway, just try it
okay,
again and see what happens. So that moment of appearance, it's like it's coming to you or something else. Just look
okay,
for what the connection between you and that appearance, the content of that
okay.
appearance was. Yes. Yeah.
I have the feeling it's not far away, although it faded, but it's not far away. Like
Yes.
I can allow it to happen,
Yes.
let's say any time, but maybe not. But I'll
Excellent. Yeah.
when it occurs to me, I'll try to recreate it. It goes somehow.
Yes, yes, and see. So it's discovery time again. It's you
Yeah,
discovering your relationship to that is what we're looking at. Yes,
yeah. Okay.
good stuff. Yeah, very excited about that. And I don't know. It feels like a long time since I've been to a group like this. It's just missing that one was just yeah, and but I also had a huge epiphany that I think might be relevant to relate to you in this anyway. So I will anyway, and I don't know if I can even put it into words that, but it was what what I had was an, an intense realization of the fact that whatever turns up is what it is. Now, when I say that, it's like I've been saying that for a long time, but the difference this time was that it went a lot deeper. That this is what it is, whether I want it or not, and that there's nothing I can do about wanting it or not wanting it. So that's also part of what it is being what it is. And so no matter what, how much I want it to be different, it's not going to change anything. All there but I also I don't have control to say, well, then I'll just accept it and then it'll be okay. Because there are things that I want that I don't accept, which are also part of it is what it is, the recognition that it is what it is. Anyway, having said all of that, it sounds quite mundane and ridiculous, but it was a very intense experience that I had about that. And it was the dirtiness of not wanting, of not accepting, that. But it was more than that. It was the sense of resistance was there. So that also had to be accepted because that was also this. So the idea that we can accept this and then there'll be no resistance is just crazy. If resistance is there, resistance is there. And that's fine because that also needs to be recognised as something that can't be changed. Yet it will change, but I can't change it by whatever by any manipulation or any technique or any skill. It is what it is, what it is. Yeah. Anyway,
That's huge, Vince.
it was huge.
Kind of
Yeah.
addresses the one thing that you've mentioned that you're kind of stuck on, this belief that things should be as you want it to be.
Yeah. Yes. Uh, yeah. And you can do nothing but laugh about that now. That's good. Yeah. Oh, Helen, you look in pain. You are in pain.
Yeah. But just listening to that, it's sort of, I've just been looking at Robert Adams, and he just says, just don't react. Just don't react to anything that comes up. And it's about that because you've just said just everything, our reaction to it, our not wanting it, it's all there, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
that's that just must give you so much freedom. That there must be so much freedom in that, and almost like a disattachment somehow. There's a lot of things for me this last couple of weeks. I've been with my sister who's in a lot of pain, so I've sat with her pain. Well, you can't really know someone else's pain, I know, but I've been there, and there's been a lot wrong with my body at the minute. Like I've broke my toe and I've twisted my back, and I've got a lot of numbness left from the epidural I had from the operation. So I've got a lot of body stuff, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I'm struggling to accept. Well, again, so I can't even accept it.
Yeah,
There's nothing that you can
absolutely. Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And on one hand, it seems so it shuts you into a little box, and it just sort of it just shuts down everything. But on another level, I'm not feeling that. But for you, it must give you so much freedom. Is that right?
It didn't feel like freedom because it felt like I just I just saw the um, I just saw the problem. I was going to say problem, and then I thought that's not the right word, but it is the right word. I just saw the problem. It didn't. I didn't. You know, like and kind of included in the problem is the answer, but it's not the. You know, like if you could do what Robert Adams said, if you could not react, well, can I have some of that? I don't know how to do that.
No,
So I'm
no,
going to react, but there's nothing wrong with the reacting. If the reacting is there, it's this. It is just this, isn't it? And so some things, it's like we've just got to wait until they pass,
mm,
and hopefully not add to it by resisting and pushing it away and fighting it and getting, you know, all doing all of those things that make it worse. So I did have that. That was part of my experience was a recognition that a lot of things just have to wait until they pass because everything will pass. Nothing
mm,
stays the same.
mm. But it feels like forever, and when you're in it, it just feels
Oh
like
yes,
forever.
yeah, yeah,
And there's that knownness, there's no future, no past. There's this other knownness, but it's here, and it just feels forever. But you sort of know it's not forever, but it
yep,
still
yep,
feels forever.
yep, yep.
Mm,
And also there's that knowing that if I don't resist it, if I can sink into it, if I can allow it, then it's likely to change faster.
okay. Mm,
And we can have stories as well that say, well, you know, if that's happening, there's got to be some usefulness in it. There's got to be something for me to discover as a result of it. I mean, it's a story we tell ourselves, but at the same time, it can be
mm,
true. You know?
mm, mm. Yeah, I was watching the body and a lot of pain I'm having at the minute, and it's like, what's it trying to tell me? So all these stories of detaching from the body um and and just accepting it all and all of this. But hearing you say there's absolutely nothing you can do with any of that either.
No, no,
No, no.
no. And if you could, it's probably not appropriate. It's probably if you could do that, if you could just turn your body off, it would be a short-term fix. So it's not going to go anywhere.
No,
It's
no.
as painful as it is, it's there for a reason.
Mm.
And so really if we can discover that reason, or even if we just can recognize that there is a reason and we don't know what it is, that can be really helpful in not resisting it.
But that's the other thing, what is it? What so the mind is just asking, wanting answers and um more questions come up. What can I do? What have I got to accept? What have I got to deep feel? And all of that sort of is going on at the same time.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. And you don't look to be in nearly as much pain as what you did about 3.5 minutes ago.
It's just being here, Vince, and listening. Is listening to you guys and what Maria says and what Paul says. It's it just sort of oh
Reset
no,
things, yeah.
another story, but it's sort of yeah.
Yeah, it reminds you of a perspective, doesn't it?
Exactly it does. It reminds me of yeah, yeah. It sort of pulls me back a bit, and come on, remember that. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, okay. All right. Now, look, I'm still at this wedding, as you can maybe hear the noise in the background, but it's still going on. So I'm when it comes time for us to go home, um, it's 9:24 here tonight. I'll just make one of you guys the host, and then I can go home, and then I can get back on. But in the meantime, so I'll just give you a bit of warning when everybody's ready to go. I'll do that if that's okay. Um, but I'm right until that happens. And who knows, they're having fun by the sound of it, so they'll keep going for a while. Yeah. Hmm. So what changed your mind, Lorraine?
Just wanting to be here for folk.
Good. Excellent.
Grabbed my laptop and ran into the bedroom and told her I'll be back.
Good stuff. So has anything changed for you after getting that going through the gate at LU?
I guess I'm just still exploring, hidden beliefs that are there. After the last week when we spoke, I realized that I was still clutching at some form of identity.
Right. Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's like some of these things are happening, and I'm questioning myself, like, why do I need to own part of that? I'm looking for ownership of some things so I'm just watching this. Is the mind still, so I'm much more aware of it now, but I can still see the mind trying to grasp onto things. And yeah, there's some sort of belief in there that I can't quite put my finger on, because when I was looking at this identity last week of teaching, and then I was asking, is this an ego thing, and do I need to own that? And I'm looking for, well, what's the specialness that I'm attributing to that, and why am I trying to own that? And so I'm just playing around with beliefs of clutching onto identity of some form at the minute. I still haven't quite put my finger on it, or what that belief is. Is it I am special or I'm not special? And where's the I or the identity in that? So I'm just digging in to what is, I guess, just more shadow stuff.
It may not be shadow stuff. Does it feel like it is shadow stuff to you? Does it feel like it's
Um,
some really significant, deep-seated something?
there's something there. It doesn't need to be so deep and full, but there's something there I can't just put my finger on.
Sure. Okay. So it's important, I think, when at this stage where you are, or where I imagine you are, um, to recognise that if something comes out that appears to be selfing, if that
Mm,
appears to be coming out from a sense of identity, it doesn't mean that you've started to believe in a self again. It may well be that just that sense of self has been triggered. So there's a distinct difference between the sense of self and an actual self. So when you get to the point where you realize there's no actual self, that sense of self is still going to get triggered,
mm,
and possibly quite reasonably so, depending on the circumstances. But if we then judge it as, oh, that means that I'm starting to believe in a self again, then that can take you off down the road that's not appropriate. It's not really what's going on. So it could well be that stuff will, and I imagine stuff will. I mean, it still happens for me. Stuff will get triggered,
mm,
and what it what that triggering does is it elicits a response that's a defensive response, which of course talks about an identification with a self. But it's not meaning that I've changed my belief from believing there's no self to believing there is a self. What it simply means is it's an old habit that's been triggered, and it's arisen because of the circumstances that's triggered it. Now, it may well be something deep, but very likely you're going to get a lot more of not deep stuff coming up just because it hasn't been triggered before. So what I'm saying is we've got to be a bit careful not to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
At the same
Thank you.
time, you don't have to be careful about anything.
Yes. Yeah.
And the topic of identity, um, what could be fruitful is to explore this thing about being alone, about the fear of being alone, about the fear of not being able to relate to people anymore, and how that kind of fuels the clinging to different identities. So the obvious identities will kind of fall easier, and then let's say the identity around wanting to be special in somebody's eyes um, could be related to the fear of being alone. At least the reason why I share that is because that was a big part of my own journey.
That resonates because when I was trying to just explore it, the I was asking, what is that? What is that clinging? And what came up for me was the thought that popped up anyway was a wanting to belong, which is
Yeah.
the opposite of the fear of being alone. Yeah.
And that is a it's not easy,
Mm.
but it's like because it's a big fear that most of us have, perhaps all of us have. It really is underlying a lot of the clinging to different types of identities, which is again clinging to different relationships and forcing us to put on masks that we don't feel comfortable with anymore, that we can't really wear without feeling uncomfortable anymore. But we do it if we're not willing to test the relationship without a mask.
Yeah.
Even like in this setting, even the fear of not seeming awake or, not getting what the other people are getting, or you know what I mean? Like even that.
It's a huge story being
Mm.
being alone. I mean, it's a huge subject. I don't mean it as a story, although it is a story, I guess. Because although we recognise that we're a herd animal as humans, and we no baby is going to develop um, adequately without contact, physical contact. We know that. We know what happens when babies get brought up with no physical contact in humidity cribs or whatever. That all sorts of psychological problems happen there. So we recognise that, but at the same time, we can also recognise that we're born alone, we live alone, and we die alone. Nobody else ever really understands us. We don't even understand ourselves. So how can anybody else possibly understand us? So there's just so much in it. This whole thing of that. So is it the feeling of connection? I mean, when connection happens, it's a great feeling, isn't it? But what is it? The connection? Is it really got to do with another person, or is it just something that gets triggered in us? There's lots and lots and lots to consider in that whole area. And ironically, there's also that non-dual state of recognizing that you are everybody else and everybody else is you. So how does that fit into being alone or not alone? There's nothing clear in this. Yeah.
My perspective on, this whole loneliness thing is it's just it's a phase, but it's an important phase.
Yeah, yeah, well put. And indeed, if there is shadow work there to be done, it very, very, very likely hooks into this very subject. Mm.
I think on this journey, apparent journey, we realize that we relate less and less to the people around us. And, the further down that road we go, the heavier it feels and the more lonely one feels. At the same time, it also feels uncomfortable to be interested in other people's stories and dramas. So you're kind of stuck in a place between like being inauthentic or what feels like inauthenticity, but at the same time, not connecting on the normal
Mm.
topics of discussion. That is just a process I think we all have to go through if we really want this.
Mm.
But at the same, like at this, I also want to say that for me, that has it's not completely over, I would say, but it's different somehow. It's not as heavy anymore. I've been reading, which is probably the I've been reading Jed McKenna these last couple of weeks, and I think that's the where where this comes from. Um, he reminded me of this specific part in my own journey, and I haven't given much importance to it when we're in these meetings, but it was a very important part I see now in retrospect. Um, and it reminded me like of the cost of this also. Like nobody nobody really wants this, I think. It's not, or at least to say it differently, this is not what people want, as he also states in his book. Um, so I find myself hesitant and reluctant to talk about this anymore, specifically, because I don't, I know that most people don't get what this is. And then before they know it, it's too late. There's no turning back.
Mm.
And then I'm reminded that, if I find myself in a conversation with somebody about something like this, it's probably too late for them anyway. So,
There's a lot in that too. How have you been, Dennis?
Good question, Vince.
You don't have to answer it. It's just a way of getting you to start talking.
Just listening to people share. Ever since I answered those questions on LU, I've had a flu. That night I answered them, it started, and it's still with me. And I never get flus, really.
Mm. You think it's connected in somehow?
I could say it is, but who knows?
Yeah, of course we
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, yeah. But it kind of feels like it is, eh?
Yeah.
Even though logic would say, how can it possibly be? But yeah, the feeling is that there's something there. Yeah.
Well, it brings with it a whole tiredness and body sensations and paying attention to different parts of the body. Like it doesn't feel bad. I'm not complaining. It's not when I'm sick. Whenever I'm sick, I don't mind it. It's like it's a positive thing in some way. I don't know where I heard of it years ago. Someone talking about when you're feeling sick, you're actually healing. So it's a positive sign that people who don't heal never feel sick.
Mm. Yeah, I get that. I see a lot of things like this as just being a cleaning out or a detoxing or
Yeah.
something like that. And it highlights the lack of separation between the physical and the psychological as well, for me.
Yeah. And the most, dare I say, the most problematic thing I've noticed lately is when I wake up in the morning, first thing on a weekday, I wake up and then thoughts come in about, usually about work. And I just get so stressed or annoyed or pissed off that these are invading my space while I'm in bed. It's like they're really painful to have those thoughts. Um, then I lie here and I put on a talk or somebody talking to distract, to try and do like a little meditation or be present. But all the time, the thoughts are just stabbing away at my brain. And then I find myself getting up eventually and going down to do work. Um, I'm wondering, God, are thoughts the mechanism that gets you up in the morning to go to work? Otherwise, you wouldn't get up. But anyway, I just find them really, really painful. It's not like he thought, oh, it's windy out. It's like they're just so intrusive, disgusting, invasive, painful. You just want to scream at them and say, get the fuck out of my head. Yeah, like a virus or something. So
Mm.
that's the kind of the thing I notice. And then as the day goes on, it gets a little easier. You go and do your work. You sometimes go, what am I doing here? Mundane life. Then I have a thought and I go, God, this feels like it's a long time. Sort of low city life, long time crap. And then I'm like, eh, but really it's only since Christmas. It's only like 3 months. It's probably nothing in the bigger scheme of things, but it feels like it's years in the making. So eh, that's my bit of an update.
Mm. So you haven't developed the skill of not engaging with your thoughts yet. So,
Feels like that would just be another thought.
well, it might present as a thought that you can not engage with these particular thoughts, but the response to that thought coming up that says that you aren't compelled to engage might be what allows the response of not engaging to happen. So when you were telling us about this, you were saying you just wanted those thoughts to get out of your head. You wanted them not to be there. Well, that's not going to happen. You can't tell your thoughts not to come. They're going to come if they come, and that's it. But you can develop the ability to not get involved with them.
But maybe as I look at it closely, it was less the thought that came into my head and the response to the thought that was the painful thought. So maybe you could say there was two thoughts: the thought, and then the painful response to the thought. More subtly, I don't want. And again, so you know, to use your analogy, then you can't not have that thought. So you're stuck then in the suffering thought of the thought.
Wait. When you recognise that it's not the thought, but it's the response to the thought, you had already disengaged with the thought, and you'd moved on to the response to the thought. So, what I said about not engaging with the thought, we could need to update that and say we need to not engage with the response to the thought, which might present as another thought, but it is the response to the thought. That's where the pain is, not the actual thought itself. You'd already disengaged with that and moved on to the
Yeah,
response to the thought.
yeah. And then I had the third thought, put on something to distract, blah, blah, blah. So really looking at thoughts, just noticing how painful thoughts are.
How
It's really the summary.
painful it is down the track from the first thought.
Mhm. Yeah. It's like we get used to thoughts during the day. It's like we put on the heavy haversack in the morning. We're like, Jesus, my back will go, and then you just get used to it, so you carry it around. But at the end of the day, you're not noticing it. But then at night time, you get tired. And you're like, oh, I'm tired now. Take the pack off again. Then in the morning, the pack of thoughts come back on, and you just carry it with you.
Around the colours, yeah. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if a different process doesn't happen tomorrow morning. Although tomorrow morning it'd be your weekend, wouldn't it? So you wouldn't be having the work stuff.
Yeah. Today's Saturday morning, so there's no work thoughts,
Uh,
which is great. Yeah.
all right, so we'll see what happens Monday morning. I'll be interested to see if it doesn't happen differently.
I expect it to be the same, but we'll see.
Right? Yeah. So do you really expect it will be the same, or is that just a thought?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a thought. I expect it to be
Hmm.
the same.
So is the thought, I expect it to be the same, an expression of something that is the actual expectation? Is that happening in your body somewhere? And the thought just reflected it?
Well, below the thinking, there's just frustration, a sort of resignation.
Okay, well, let's just see what happens Monday morning,
Yeah.
eh? I don't have expectations that it will or it won't. I wouldn't be surprised if it was different. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same. Well, it won't be the same, but if you don't end up with the same result.
I would say if you're expecting it to be the same, it will be the same. So drop the expectation or investigate the expectation. I mean, you can't drop it, but you can investigate why you expect it to be the same.
Yeah, the expecting it to be the same is just a thought that's coming up from the frustration. So that's not really important. It's just expressing frustration in which is now. So I could be dead tonight and we won't have to worry about Monday morning in reality. So
So what is it that you would want to do instead of this mundane work?
well, it's not the work. Like I want to jump out of the bed in the morning and sing to the trees and sing the sound of music with the sun rising and dance down the stairs and have breakfast and go to work. I don't care what the work is.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, why can't you do that?
I have no idea.
Or can you do that? Is there something in the way of doing that?
Yes, that would be yes. And you'd need a few hours to unpack what that might even be.
Well, sometimes you don't
Maybe,
need to know what it will be, just knowing that it's something might be enough to allow it to be different. Sorry, Maurice.
I was just going to say maybe there is some beliefs there that is in the way that just needs to be seen, and then they're not in the way anymore.
Yeah, there's probably loads of beliefs in the way.
Ones you haven't seen yet. So you'll still go to work with the flu?
Well, this week, just this week now, I work from home. I'd usually go into the office a few days, but I've just stayed at home for the week because of the flu, just so I don't spread it.
So it's the same feelings about working from home as it is going into work, is it?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. There's a bit more effort going into work because you get a bit more dressed up and ready and things like that. You have to travel, so but yeah, it's a small enough difference. There's probably a when you're in work, then there's maybe it feels like a little bit less pressure because you're actually in work. You know the way when you're not in the place, you feel like you have to work harder. So because you're not there. When you're there, you can chat to someone for half an hour at the coffee machine, thinking, "Well, I'm in work." You know, you're not doing anything. It's that sort of thing.
So I missed what did you say about why you can't skip down the stairs and enjoy the sunlight and the etc. on your breakfast and then go to work? Why can't you do that? Did I
It's like, yeah, it's no, I didn't answer it. Yeah, you didn't miss something, Vince. You didn't have a stroke. We lost you for 5 minutes. Um, um, well, it's in summary, it's like, well, we have to sort all these problems out first, and then we'll do that. You know, it's this in the future. We'll do it in the future when we sort out all these problems.
you got a list of those problems? Got it all organised to be able to sort it out?
What comes to mind straight away was I made a decision, feels like a while back, maybe been on this group at some point that you kind of say, well, put everything else on hold until you wake up or you have a shift. And I'm even loath to say that now because I do not want to talk about this. Are you awake? Are you not awake? It just makes me want to get sick. Like I'm just not interested in that. So, but that was part of it. This sort of putting life on hold until
Mm.
this is the most important thing. First, you seek the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be given unto you. That sort of bullshit is kind of part of it.
Mm.
Like I keep making plans to go over to the gym and you know do weights, get fit, stay fit, so I have a level of fitness as I get older. It's a plan, and once a month I might get over. I haven't got over in 2 weeks, so it's like you make plans to do stuff, and then life just has you sitting around. So, so why don't I dance down the stairs because life doesn't want me to. Is it the problem that I can't dance down the stairs, or is the problem that I think I should?
Or is the problem that you think there's something wrong with the fact that you don't?
Yeah, yeah. There's the movie on Prime I watched last night out of nowhere. Um, what's his name? The guy, the elf fella from Meet the Fockers is in it. Played the Godfather in Godfather 1 as a young
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Anyway, his son was talking about it's a comedy, but he's talking about like slagging his dad and the work ethic, and said something like, "Well, maybe dad, that they didn't wake up every morning at 5:45, thinking they have to work, 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 work. You have to be productive. You have to do stuff to be productive, to be somebody." So it's that. Maybe it's part of that conditioning.
What happens when you're not productive?
Yeah, there's definitely a guilt, a lot of guilt.
So,
But there's so much to be done. It's the more every day is more, and you're like, oh my God, this is all crushing me, and I can't even start.
so there's still a belief in doership.
Yeah, most likely.
And you promised yourself this after you woke up, but you haven't woken up yet, so you can't deliver, eh?
Well, I suppose after that event or happening or non-happening, maybe some of the scaffolding will be dismantled and removed, and this stuff will start to be easier to knock down. The Angelo's coming to mind that, trying all this stuff before awakening is really, really a waste of time and difficult. It can only really be tackled after awakening. I think that's coming to mind now.
Mm. So why isn't it happening after awakening?
Well, there's been no awakening, so for me, why isn't it happening? That's
Mm.
why.
Mm.
Have you really like grokked the emptiness in stories, in concepts, like what that really means in terms of meaning and beliefs and relationships and
I'm
life?
I'm not understanding the question, Marius, maybe.
No, I'm trying to relate it to my own process where this thing about doership is is clearly seen intellectually, and I think you've clearly seen it intellectually. That is my imagination, anyways. But when the stories come you believe in the stories. So I wonder if you kind of really dug in to see how empty these stories are. Not those particular stories, but all stories.
Yeah, I can kind of see what you're pointing at, an emptiness in stories. The stories aren't as important as what feels like is under them.
The sensations, you mean, or
Yeah, the sensations and um, the potentiality for emotions. Yeah,
and do you understand that those are just reactions to your conditioning, and that your conditioning is also just empty? It's just stories that you have believed in, that you have, created into habits.
yeah, that feels like we've gone down a level deeper. Um, mm, Not so sure I can say, yeah, I can see that that's empty. I would say maybe something like it's trying to empty.
Mm.
Can you see that if you start at the bottom level, right, with conditioning, it is that you've been told or shown certain things, and out of those, you've accepted something that is a story. And then those stories have been believed, and then they've been ingrained. And then the stories themselves have been forgotten, but the ingrained aspect of it continues. And that's your habitual reactions, that's your conditioning. And so if we start at the top like we did with Marius a moment ago, you can say fairly easily, yeah, I can see that stories are empty, that they're just stories. They're not to be believed. There's nothing factual about them. They're just stories. But if we start then go down and go, but what's underneath the stories? You're saying the sensations, the reactions, the emotion, right? Those things, if you go from the bottom back up, are also the response to stories. And are those stories empty? They would definitely be empty in actual fact, but do you believe them to be empty? If you did, those reactions wouldn't be there anymore, would they? So you still
I'm
don't
not,
believe they're empty. Yeah, go on.
yeah, no, I'm not sure about what you're saying that the emotions are caused by the stories. Our emotion sensation are caused by stories. I don't know that. And the other option is emotions and sensations create stories into the mind to get our attention.
Mm-hmm.
It
So
works
I don't
both
know which
ways.
way. So it doesn't
It
work both ways.
works, yes. So
Okay.
the emotional or sensational reactions come from old stories. And when that story isn't clear to you, and you're just feeling something heavy or something that you don't want to feel, you construct new stories to understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling.
Yeah, yeah. Because there is right now, like there's a heaviness, sensations in the body, like, and it's like they're trying to talk to me. It's like they're a dog barking, and I'm like, what? What are you saying? So like the body is trying to communicate something in its sensations. And it also feels like sometimes there's thoughts or stories that are not on the surface. They're not like waves that you can read like code.
Yeah.
They're not even speaking, but there is story in the making, or an old story that hasn't come up to be heard. but it's there. It's like it's bubbling underneath with sensations like so you don't even get the story to contemplate in the mind. You have to just feel the body and the sensations and the emotion, and but that's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So here is a perspective on that, which is also just a story. But what if, you know, the longer down the line of this apparent journey you go, the more difficult it is to not feel the feelings. So what life is kind of forcing you to do now, if you take away all the stories, all the meaning of whatever, and just look at what is happening right now, is that you're almost forced to um, take a breather and feel and process.
Yeah. Well, that
But then
sounds
there's
like good news.
a resistance towards that by trying to explain what is happening.
Yeah, yeah, that all makes sense, Marius. Like I didn't have to speak today when Vince asked me what was going on. I could have just stayed quiet, you know. That's what I felt like. It's you kind of you bring your lot to the table. You don't need to. You just feel. This is what I was doing, enjoying other people's stories and commentary and being with myself. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
I'd just like to add that if there's a story there that says you need to see that what the stories are about in order to be free of them, that's not right. It you would be free of them if you saw what they were about, but just knowing that there's a story there that these emotions are a response to can be enough to let it go. So you don't have to know what the story's about. Just knowing that it's there is enough to let it go sometimes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, the latter, knowing what it's about, it really feels like engaging the mind more around it, which is not necessary.
Yep. And the mind will say, "Oh, you've got to know what it's about." The mind will want to know what it's about because that's the nature of mind. But yeah, good.
And at the same time, I can report back that my conditioning is changing. All that conditioning we spoke about, that is changing. I'm not necessarily aware of it too much, but I know from feedback from the people around me that it is changing. So that's just something to say.
Yeah, that's. I love good news.
I think it's a valuable insight from others, that we can kind of be blind to any change in ourselves if we're just stuck, or we feel we have a story that we're stuck, that we're not going anywhere. And then somebody points out, like my wife pointed out to me, that I'm much more present and I'm like here with her rather than in my mind trying to figure out all this different stuff that I used to be hung up on before. I didn't realize that, to be honest, but it was nice to hear that she feels that way.
Yeah, it just shows you how present she is to notice you becoming present.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I don't think it's easy on, you know, people we are in really closest relationships to when we are obsessed with this seeking. Like I was really obsessed. And I think we all have been there at some point for many years. So
How about you, Scott? What's your recent experience been like?
Hi. Right after right after the meeting last week, this meeting, well, not right after, but for me it was anyway. My dog got sick, and he just started, asking to go out every hour, diarrhea. Then he stopped eating, and it went on for a while. He's only like 17 pounds, so stories were developing that he was going to die, and and I anyway, so I guess I stayed up for 2 days because he had to go out every hour, and, I was really having a lot I mean, I'm very attached to him, apparently. I was, suffering quite a bit, and I noticed, like, I had my Fitbit, and my heart rate variability, like, went down to half, like, my body really took it, like, I must have stressed my body out quite a bit, and, also kinda took a little steam out of me. I don't know, I might have some emotions stuck in there, but, I noticed, like, you're very yeah. I guess it opened up it invited me to judge myself for, you know, for being affected so much, and, also a little embarrassed because I look around and see people with challenges like Helen and that aren't even, in a totally different category. So, I don't know about it.
how did it feel sharing that just now, Scott?
There's, sadness trying to come and he's fine now. I, um, I suppressed my feelings, um, at the time. I didn't feel like, breaking down was gonna help the situation. Maybe that's why. There's like, I'm embarrassed. I guess I'm a person, but I'm totally like, I feel embarrassed about it too.
What are you embarrassed about?
So just something just popped up. Like, when I was a kid, my parents wouldn't get us a dog or anything like that. My mom was a nurse, my dad was a family doctor, and their position was that animals are inconsequential. Only humans are um, valuable, let's say. So it could be partly that, that there's a embedded belief that I just kind of it just kind of popped up. I don't know if it's that or not. I just because I feel like other than my attachment to him, if he passed away, it wouldn't affect my life. And how could that stress me so much?
So you said other than your attachment to him. Tell me what you feel when I ask you this question. Do you love your dog more than you love people?
Yes.
No hesitation, eh? And this is completely the opposite of what your parents were telling you.
Like I don't know if you remember, but I'm pretty sure that there's some connection between, him like and my dad. My dad had a stroke during one of my football games. He was the team doctor, and I watched him fall to the ground and have all these convulsions and shit, and I went to the hospital and died. And I think, like a little while back, I kind of pretty much connected my love for this dog to my, because it's unconditional love, which is rare or doesn't exist.
Mm.
And didn't get that from my father. Like I tried to chase him my whole childhood. So there could be like, cross links maybe with that. I think there is. But
Maybe your father reincarnated into your dog.
yeah, maybe.
What do you imagine would happen if you lost your dog to your life? I mean, your life quality.
So what do I think would have happened? I think that a few I feel like I would have recovered and I think I probably would have recovered pretty quickly and or at least that's what I imagined that I in a couple days that I would recover and realize that, everything is still essentially okay.
Yeah, that sounds like a kind of a, I don't want to call it a bypass, but maybe I'll ask the question differently. What would be missing from your life if he wasn't there?
I get a lot out of contact with him, especially physical contact. A lot. Well, maybe it's just you can't talk to him. I don't know. Just
Companionship, unconditional love,
he's my buddy.
joy, not being alone.
I have a wonderful partner. I'm not alone. I isolate myself otherwise. Like I don't let anybody else near me. But I do have a wonderful partner.
But your dog accepts you unconditionally, eh?
Oh
Doesn't
yeah,
care
sure.
what you look like, doesn't care what you say, doesn't care anything about you. He just accepts you fully.
I still um I still hold on to my feelings a lot. Like I suppress a lot. Even I think like during the day, like when I go around and like sensations come up, like I stay with them and everything. But when it becomes like this situation was triggering enough or activating enough, whatever word you want to use, that I didn't even everything was short circuited. You know, watching him every hour go out and struggle, you know, was it's just a story.
But if you needed a $10,000 operation, you'd have found the money, eh?
I guess so. I don't know. I kind of have this belief. I guess it comes from my parents. I still like, you know, how much that's another question. That's a totally separate question. I haven't figured that out. What I would do if it turned out that he needed surgery. I'm not sure what I would have done. I like I don't have the cash to do it, but
Yeah, would you
I
though?
am retired and I rely on Social Security, and it's
Yep.
that
Would
may
you?
not be here next month or whenever.
Mm. So the dog's well now?
Yeah, yep. He bounced back. We had to take him to the vet. We couldn't get no emergency vets would take any dogs that weren't like about ready to die, and we got a appointment with our vet the next day, and they injected a bunch of fluids under his the nap of his. I think that's how they do it with dogs. They inject fluids subcutaneously and gave us some medications and some prescription food. And after it took him a while, but finally he started eating that night. And
Going
of
good.
course, I watched him eat, just started bawling.
Mm. In relief.
Yeah,
Mm.
like I almost like you have these thoughts like I'd rather get up and find him when dead than sit there and watch him die. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Just totally selfish, but
So what would you say that whole episode showed you about yourself? New, something new. What did you discover about yourself through that episode?
something new. I'm not sure. I've never been bonded to an animal like this. No, I don't.
You mentioned being embarrassed for something, and I didn't quite catch for what. Was it embarrassment for reacting the way you did?
Yeah.
And who who was on the other side of that embarrassment? Were you afraid to show this reactivity towards?
It was internal self-judgment. It was look at the level of attachment you have with this animal and look at the inability of you to deal with it.
You totally dealt with it, Scott. Your ability to love another being is frighteningly big.
Yeah, I was quite puzzled when you said your inability to deal with it. I thought, well, what do you mean by that?
I guess all those beliefs or whatever that I said were gone or whatever. I guess that was bypassing, but I guess I'm talking about internally. Like I just thought I shouldn't be suffering like this. Like, how could I be suffering like this? There's nobody here. There's, you know, he's just a dog. I'm fine.
Right.
My wife is fine.
So
Do
I'm,
you equate, sorry, do you equate pain with suffering?
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Um, Emotional pain. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I guess I do. I guess.
Was it emotional pain or just a force of love?
I don't know. I don't know. I know it seemed different than other times when I've been when sadness has come up. There have been times when sadness has come up spontaneously, and it was not. It was almost pleasant, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Crying's there, um, and this felt more like more like suffering, you know, like
So tell me this. This is the story that came up here, and it may or may not be true, but tell me how you think about this. It wasn't the pain and the sadness that caused the suffering. It was thinking that you shouldn't be feeling that caused the suffering.
I don't know, like I had no idea. I wasn't watching my thoughts during this time. I was
Lost in it. Yeah, sure.
lost. So it was a lot of just like helplessness. Like I can't save this dog's life, you know? When my father died, I was 16. I went to school. Sorry about that.
All right.
Maybe I should work on letting some more emotion out. Was still have that tendency.
Do you feel embarrassed about showing us this emotion?
A little because of just how I grew up. Like emotions were not allowed.
Mm.
Don't want to talk about them because basically they didn't use the word suppress, but it was just like, put your hand up. Oh, no.
And especially about something as inconsequential as an animal.
Right. But even people, like, I was concerned, I mean, I have memories. It doesn't matter. They're all stories. But even with people, like, uh, emotions were not, see, it was all physically. If whatever your body needs, that is what it's going to get. But fuck your mind. They don't fuck your brain, fuck your emotions, fuck everything else. Only the body. We'll save you. Whatever needs to be done will be done. But
Hmm.
if you're afraid, don't worry about it. And this is all stuff from way down in the bottom. And again, it makes it seem like you start to doubt, like there's a bunch of doubt right now because honestly, like I see it. I see that my perception is still the same. I see like this, it's here. I see it, but still there's there's doubt that wants to like, oh yeah, look, just what happens. For instance, what if my wife gets sick? What's going to happen? Am I going to, I know I won't because I always get strong when there's emergencies, but the thoughts are there, I guess. Just mixed up a little bit.
It struck me though, Scott, when you said it moved on from your dog to your dad, and how young you were when your dad passed, and how feels like how much you love him and miss him, and how helpless you felt back then.
The only reason I was playing football was to try to get near him. He pretty much ignored us, and especially me because I was quiet. And then I noticed that when I went out for basketball as a child, like little league basketball, all of a sudden there he was at the sideline. So then I started playing sports. I hated sports, and I played sports through my high school career until I died, trying to get some attention, I guess. I don't even know where I am now. And I could see pretty much that, like, when I bonded to this dog, I was like, I didn't, for the longest time, I was like, why am I so bonded to this dog? And it kind of, during inquiry and stuff, it just dawned. I asked, why is it? And then it just hit me, about an hour later.
So try this fantasy. What if you felt the way you do towards your dog? What if you felt that way towards your father? What if your father did bond with you as much as you bonded with your dog? How would life be different for you now if that had happened all your life? Your father had feelings towards you like your dog has, that unconditional love, that bonding had happened. How would life be different for you now if that were the case?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I could tell a story. Maybe I wouldn't be as attached to the dog. I don't know. Maybe I would have more. I don't know. Like I'm socially inept. You know what I mean? Or at least that's the history of who I am, like, or what the system is or was. And a lot of it, I think, is because of the lack of, I just didn't learn how to have relationships when I was young.
So in this
Um,
in this story, your dad's love and unconditional connection to you would have turned you into a car salesman.
I doubt it. I don't know. It's I mean, it's kind of hard to feel valuable when your father doesn't pay attention to you at all, and your mother tells you that, don't speak unless spoken to. That kind of thing. Like, but again, just a story. Like I mean, I know it's embedded probably somewhere in my nervous system or whatever. Everything will be fine. I just need time, I think. But there's no time, so what am I going to do? Just here.
Did you feel like, related to this embarrassment of showing emotions here now, do you feel like there was a kind of the embarrassment was a result of not protecting a subtle image or a front that you have in
I
this
mean, there's some of
setting?
that. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was
There
done.
is some of that. But it feels like most of it is training from from growing up. It feels like because I'm just not allowed. You know what I mean? I'm just not allowed to show my emotions because I'm sitting in the car at the vet and we're waiting to go in or whatever, and I started to well up, and I just suppressed it. There was nobody there. I could, except for my wife. I could have let it go if I wanted to. And I remember thinking I really should let this go. I need to do it, but
Can you let it
I
go
guess
now?
I I I fight with it a lot. It it's hard to let out sometimes. A lot of times, I don't know. Yeah, the embarrassment is from my being young because I can feel it. It's like even having thoughts like, "Oh, my mother can see me now," or whatever.
Well, you're helping us a lot, Scott. There's no need to be embarrassed.
You're evoking a lot of love and compassion and connection and a lot of good stuff by showing us who you are.
And you're showing us who we are.
Beautiful. You're breaking down those walls that you built.
Gonna take a while. I think.
Can you get a feel for however it is, what it is always right? Can you get a feel for that?
Yeah, I tried, like, I've not tried. It's like during when he was really sick, everything was out the window. But once he started recovering, it's like, yeah, and this too is exactly as it should be, and that, like, I'll bring myself to it. But there's a difference between when I do it at other times. Like, there's a sensation that feels like it has a message. No, things aren't really okay. You know,
Mm. Yeah, it's all a movement towards better kind of thing.
I, I mean, just now, like, I was like, well, no matter what, like, even though I can't like think of something right now that like this opened up for me, I know that as I know, probably as the present moment progresses or whatever it does, and I will, I know, I know things will come up for me. I can, I, I just need to be a little. I think if I was a little further away from when I get a little further away from it, it'll be a little clearer. I think there's a lot of. I just kind of need to like let this emotion out that I've been suppressing.
Well, it doesn't have to come out. It can dissipate in there just by acknowledgement. Out is good too. Yeah.
I mean, do you think acknowledgement does it? Because I guess I'd have a belief that you have to let it go. So to once you suppress it, if you don't let it go, it stays there. But maybe that's not true.
Yeah. And maybe your idea of suppression is not quite the way it actually is either. Just feels like that. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe replace I keep suppressing it with I keep feeling it.
Maybe this wasn't about attachment at all, but to give you this very experience in this meeting.
Mm. Yeah, makes me feel like I need to do something. Like, oh, I need to go in there and cry until I have no tears left, or there's no anger at all. It's just complete
Mm.
sadness and fear, I guess.
Well, maybe it's just a cocktail of emotion. Maybe it's just emotion is enough to say, yeah.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because it was a week of it wasn't quite a week because he started getting better. Now I started to relax more, but yeah, I guess it was a week of complete like like when things like this happen, I become a stone until it's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, that's the old way, eh?
You're a wartime conciliary.
Reminds me of something that happened to me a few years ago where I ended up swimming up out to pick up somebody that I thought had drowned, and it ended up being a dead body, which was pretty like blue and green and swollen and smelled pretty bad. And in that moment, everything was just instinctual. I thought I was going out to save somebody. So it was just no thinking, just doing. And I was a bit shook after, but it was, I think, a whole year had gone by where I actually told a couple of close friends of mine what has happened. And I just bursted out in, a huge release of emotions and crying and that I had no idea was there. So it's life finds ways for us to release.
I considered not coming to the meeting. I was like, I'm not really feeling it.
Me too.
I'm always glad when I do, for sure.
Me too.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Love you, Scott.
Love you, Marius. I love everybody here. Helen.
So hard to not stop it from coming out, isn't it?
Yeah. When I let it go, like after a short period of time, I can feel it. Something keeps pushing it down.
Yeah, I get that. I experienced that too. But what comes
I
out,
would.
it's enough.
Uh,
To acknowledge
yeah.
what's there is a big part of it. Not just the expression, but just the acknowledgement of it is huge. And isn't it crazy, I love you, Scott. And
Thank you.
that releases tears. Isn't it? How can something really good like that do that? But it does.
I this seems a little on a side thing, but like when I see the potential for connection that's here, I wonder like how do I not have friends? Like I push everybody away from me. I can't think of a single person right now would want to pull into this house other than who's here right now. And you wonder like with there's so much love potential and yet it seems like when I go out, all I see is potential problems from people. I guess I don't know.
Mm.
Maybe there just aren't. This is my story. The percentage of people who are able to connect like this is very, very small. And I don't. Most of the people that I've met, I'd rather not talk to you for more than a couple minutes because usually it just becomes disingenuous.
But yeah, you're right. I get what you say, but I also have experienced that you can elicit that in them by just showing it yourself.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm
Yes.
blocking a lot. I know there's people out there that you know, I've blocked out that probably had a lot of potential as a connection. And because I've always kept people at arm's length, um, every time I go out, each person I go when I go to the grocery store, I look at a person and inside I say, I love you, and I try to do that and put the half smile on my face to try to break me out of my standard operating procedure, and it seems to be working. I don't know, who knows, but it does seem to work
Yeah,
to some degree.
you'll get better at that. That's a skill. You'll learn that. You'll get better and better and better at that. And it's kind of crazy because what you're getting better at is what kind of comes naturally if you just drop the resistance to it, which is being open and friendly. And then you'll find that, wow, that's what you get back. It's pretty big.
I mean,
I would
some of that
also,
has. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
uh, I just wanted to say, uh, like what Vince is pointing at here, I will say from a different angle, and is that the master key of connection is vulnerability. So, but it's you who have to offer that up first because you have done the most work compared to most people, at least those people that you're referring to that seems closed off. So you're kind of the light that's offering the vulnerability, taking the first step, and then at least I find that as soon as I'm sharing something vulnerable, 9 out of 10 people share something back.
I have noticed that before I started doing that exercise when I go out is like when I'm out walking the dog and stuff, I say hello to people a lot more than I ever would have in the past. It that happened kind of like spontaneously. I didn't, but as far as letting somebody like into my heart, there is a big wall there that I have to. You gave me an idea though. I'm gonna call a buddy of mine and tell him about what happened with Murphy. He has dogs, and maybe that might. We'll see. I kind of like wrote him off because he sent me these conspiracy theory things. Like I was trying to make an attempt to get to be his friend, and he sent me these conspiracy theory things, and I'm like I'm not going down that road. Like I can't do it. So I kind of wrote him off, But who knows? I'll give him a second chance.
Yeah, that's a trick, that
Sometime,
one. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, sometime you lead the way.
Yeah, yeah. I made it. I saw something and I made a judgment and shut it down rather than I couldn't really think of any other way. I don't know. I was gonna send him like something spiritual to see how he reacted to that, because he's a church person, you know? So I'm like, well, where is it that you find this like peace that passes all understanding? Like, where is that? Show me that. Like, that's what I'm interested in, not these conspiracy theories. But I kept my mouth
You would have
shut.
come off way worse, Scott, sending him spiritual stuff.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't have talked to me after that.
This guy's a nutter. Mm.
All right. Well,
I even have fears that. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You need to go, man. You need to go. I'm good. I really appreciate everything you guys do for me. I love you all. Bye, everybody. See you next time.
thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks.